Hello, cats and kittens. Hola, Jose, Roshko. We are in the crisis corner. Actually, we're doing C3 Weekly. And for C3 Weekly, this week we have the founders. Myself, Alan Cole, and David Welcher, the founders of C3 Comics. Say hello, boys.
Fellas.
Yeah. And what we're going to do, we're going to do a post-mortem on the Skywalker series. It's the Skywalker Saga. The 3-arc Skywalker Saga. And I'm going to preface this by saying that personally, this is not a bash, well, at least not a bash George Lucas type situation, which everybody seems to be doing nowadays.
I'm in the wrong recording there.
I think.
Yeah, well, I said personally, because I'm not out there necessarily bash Lucas specifically, or this is just basically an overview of the saga. Did it work? Did it not work? Why didn't it work? Our opinions on that. And I consider myself a Star Wars fan. I can't say I'm a geek that knows the name of every ship and planet and can tell you this, that, and the other, and that corny stuff. But I love the series, or at least did up until a while ago. Anyway, so and I don't know about you. How do y'all feel about the series as a whole? I mean, Alan, how do you feel about the series?
It goes back to one of the questions that no one will ever hear yet from yesterday. Inspiration versus perspiration.
Yeah.
Truly aspiring story that unfortunately had the wrong captain at him. Mm-hmm. George Lucas is not a person that can finish. His character development is horrible. His the whole thing is a clusterfuck, and it actually
keep it clean.
Sorry. He had to have other people come in to actually bring his idea to realization, and it's still confusing decades later as to the crux of what is Star Wars. So we can get into it. It's just it was brought about at a different time in the 70s, but people were wowed by like claymation and whatnot. So that goes to tell you a lot. You know, it led the way for where we are now. So I will always be grateful to him.
Okay.
But, I could probably rather look at Flash Gordon right now.
David.
I love Star Wars. Well, I guess we're not talking about.
Says the Transformer.
But I love what it stands for. I like, Star Wars and a lot of the supporting properties. I'm a fan. Like you said, I'm not a geek. I don't know a whole bunch of stuff. I can't tell you, the type of cruiser or whatever. I don't know any of that stuff, but I like it.
Okay. And I will say this, to let you know where I'm at. Transformers, the animated movie, will crush just about everything that came out under the Star Wars brand. I ain't even gonna lie to you. That's my opinion, you know what I'm saying?
We get the Clone Saga cartoons, the animators. Those are really, really good.
And I think as we get into it, we'll see that.
Oh, the Clone Saga is great.
Yeah, the Clone Wars stuff actually elevated.
Yeah,
my impression of the series. They did a lot of stuff that either Lucas didn't have time to do or didn't want to do or whatever.
Don't say didn't have time.
Yeah.
Don't say
no, he didn't. I mean, movies are different from TV shows. I think you can do a little bit more with shows and so forth and flesh out things.
About 2.5 hours as opposed to laying out something over 20 episodes.
Yeah.
20, 30-minute episodes, 22-minute episodes or whatever.
I mean, movie's supposed to give you a little snapshot of, whatever. And you can, it's debatable if he did a good job in that snapshot, but.
Okay. All right, so just as the later ground rules, we're examining the series based on the creator's intent, what Lucas was intended to do. Did he fall off from that intent, or did he lose his focus, or within the parameters of what he was trying to do? Now, as an overview, as I think Alan brought out, he was trying to do basically his version of the Flash Gordon series that he grew up with. That's what he was trying to recreate with at least New Hope. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think he knew he was going to get 4 and 5. So New Hope was basically supposed to be set up for the series. If they liked it, you could proceed from there. All right. So that's generally where he was working from the outset. Then you go into all the stuff, the 4, 5, 6, the prequels and whatever. So from I'm basically call it the introduction arc, starting at 4, New Hope. In terms of the concept itself, what's your impressions of just the concept of New Hope? Basically introducing the basics of the series, in terms of the galactic battles, the underdogs, and all of that stuff. Did it give you a clear entry point? We'll go with Alan David.
Okay. Are we, for A through D, are we giving a grade per category, or are we giving a grade just overall?
Overall.
Okay. So we're on the concept right now?
Yeah.
The concept for New Hope, I think, was actually really good. I really do like it. I see it as the good. It's the hero coming up into his own to challenge the evil of whatever he's against. It's a classic story. I think he hit that mark perfectly. So I don't really like as the story itself. Yes. If you get more into it, I think that story gets crushed by the lore that was created from afterwards, because it doesn't hold up, in my opinion, after all the other consecutive, and then you start to get into the force more. But with the story itself contained, it's a wonderful story.
Okay, David.
The concept, I guess I agree in so much that I take it as a space opera. It's meant to be grand and scale, like you said, Flash Gordon. It's meant to be operatic in nature. It's an odyssey. I think of it like it's a coming of age story as well. I mean, Luke Skywalker is essentially a space wizard. I agree with Alan in so much that I think that I think the concept was executed as he intended it to be.
Okay, and I'll be in agreement with both of you. Conceptually, that coming of age, space age drama, it was never intended. It don't look like it was ever intended to be anything extraordinarily heavy. It wasn't like Aliens or something like that, where it was going to be. It was for kids and adults, but maybe skewed a little bit more towards the younger age, because that's where he was coming at it from, his youth. So that's him passing along his youth to others. So okay, I can deal with that. So I would say he did a good job conceptually on the overall story. Good versus evil, black and white. Nothing extraordinarily complicated, just a straight ahead story on that level. Now, as we get into the characters that he introduced into that format, into that setting, you're talking about, the mentor, the young hero, the rogue, the protagonist, antagonist situation. How did that work for you?
For me?
Yeah.
I actually thought as an introduction to these characters, I thought that he laid a good groundwork. The mentor, and once again, this is because like all of this collapses once you add all the additional layers on, i.e. the movies and the lore of Star Wars itself, the Force and everything. But as a one-off, Obi-Wan Kenobi was wonderful. Didn't get too much into the history of why he was there and whatnot. Luke Skywalker coming into his own. At the time, it was a revolutionary move to make Leia as strong as she was. Because females, that was a big thing to have them be actually strong in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Vader, just to have an ominous presence. The Emperor, somebody else that was supposed to be more badass than him.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course he knocked it out the park with Han Solo. Getting a veteran actor to come in and put a little bit of swag into the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
He hit it good with the characters. The stormtroopers, even from like comedic effect, like right now you look at it, this is comedic. They can't hit anything, and they kind of tried to clean it up with the Force, was observe whatever. But no, I think he did really, really good with the characters too.
Okay, and I kind of, it's interesting. You got to kind of put the Force in there, not necessarily somewhere between a concept and a character. As we go along into the series, we're going to see how kind of muddled that got. It was it?
No, just like the Force. If the Force in the first movie, the way it comes off to me is kind of like, say, Wolverine, his claws. Mm-hmm. Wolverine has his base set of powers. He has his personality quirks. He has his history, and then he has the claws, which just amplify whatever he has. It makes him just that much more dangerous. Mm-hmm. So the Force was this overarching thing that Luke was somehow connected to, that connected him to Vader and the Emperor and to Kenobi, which made him separate from everyone else. Han Solo wasn't connected to the Force. Leia at that time wasn't connected to the Force. So the Force itself it wasn't a person yet. It wasn't a character, but it was an addition that made that character special. Okay. And the Force kind of got convoluted after that. So,
okay, that's fair. David?
I thought he did a good job of laying out who the players were and their purpose in regards to the story. He did not try to break the mold with any of the archetypes used. Like he had the young hero. He had a mentor, like you said, a rogue. I agree with Alan in that Leia she brought spunk to the team. I think Grand Moff Tarkin was I loved him. Vader as the nasty number 2. I thought it was phenomenal. Everybody played their role and they played it well. So I think character-wise, he didn't miss a beat.
Okay, that's an interesting point because
much. Yeah, he didn't try to go too far. It wasn't. He kept it simple. It was like you said. It's a story. I think it's a story for kids. So ultimately, it speaks to the kid in you. If it resonates with you, it's supposed to speak to the kid in you. So the characters are straightforward. The story is straightforward. Everything is He didn't do too much in that regard.
And it's interesting from the standpoint of New Hope. You kind of get the impression that Tarkin is like he was the head of the Joker, you know what I'm saying? And Vader was his underling, you know what I'm saying? It's not till you get further in that you see that the Emperor is as big a deal as he is, I don't think. I'm not sure how much he even mentioned that the Emperor got in the first.
I think, you knew definitively he outranked Vader, definitively off the break. It's an empire. I think they made mention, so there has to be an emperor in some regard. I don't know if you get too much in the structure in that regard, but you definitely know that Vader isn't the top guy.
Yeah, he's basically a sideman or a representative within the hierarchy of the Emperor, but he don't, by no means does he outrank Tarkin. Tarkin is pretty much the head of the military or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The head of the Galactic Army or whatever. But it's interesting. As you go into the series, people's the scope of the individual takes on different meaning, at least by the second. All right, so we established the characters. Now we're getting in basically into the plot. The plot of this story is hero's journey. Is essentially talking about hero's journey, and the importance of Kenobi, I think, is interesting in the series as it goes on, because the establishing the link between, or the closeness between him and Luke, I think, is kind of critical. Although at the same time, it's kind of glossed over, because plot-wise, in terms of Obi-Wan's eventual death, to me, it shouldn't mean as much to Luke as it actually did, because this is a cat that he knew for what, 24 hours or so? I mean, he's known him in the past, don't get me wrong. He knew old Ben from his youth, but that's not explored, and it didn't have to be. You know what I'm saying? Because you're just jumping in. He knew old Ben from over the Dune Sea or whatever. He knew this cat. But he seemed pretty broken up by the time he got killed, and I'm not sure.
They call him Crazy Ben?
Yeah, he's an old Ben at least.
They turned it
down. He was kind of dismissive of him. To me, he seemed kind of dismissive. He said, "Isn't that old Ben from?" It didn't sound like nobody that he was really tied to. But then they established their link as they went on their little hero's journey. So in terms of the plot, the overall plot, what's your impressions of the plot? We established it's a simple story, but how did the plot hit you?
I mean, to that point, I agree with Dave and yourself. The plot is pretty much straightforward. He introduces the characters that play directly into, like, their roles are directly defined. So it's very, very easy. Like, Obi-Wan Kenobi is there to tie the old generation that no one knows about yet with the new generation. So he's that connective tissue with the Force and somewhat the rebellion. Mm-hmm. And, like, without anyone really knowing about Luke Skywalker, which of course gets explained later, but his connection with it. So, he does a good job. He does a really good job, and I don't have any outward complaints about this issue. I mean, it's pretty much straightforward. It's a timeless story.
Okay, Dave.
I mean, it's a straightforward. It's a hero's journey tale. I mean, he's a coming of age hero's journey. He's a space wizard. A thumping good one, I'd wager. It's a. You've seen it before. You see it again. It is what it is. It's the mentor goes bye at some point. I agree with you, and well, I guess so. At some point, we're gonna talk about execution of because some of the stuff, like you said, it doesn't necessarily add up in terms of. But I mean, it's straightforward. He wants to join the rebellion. Not sure. I guess we're not gonna get into it, but he wants to join the rebellion. He ends up with this ragtag group, and they are, in essence, join up with the rebellion, and they got to stop the bad guys. It's pretty straightforward in terms of what the story is,
Ends up with an intrepid group of
and it's interesting. We might as well get into execution at this point, because I think I like the way that he, like if you go through One Piece, basically how Luffy picks up his Nakama along the way. It did a good job of that. He knew Ben. They hooked up, and he put him on that road. One of my favorite scenes in there is where there's that little pause after they hear the message that R2 had on the recording, and there's that silence, and then he kind of looks at Luke like, "You have to go with me to to on this journey." Basically, Luke, who had been all this time crying about how he wanted to get away from Tatooine, stopped backing up. You know what I'm saying? "Oh no, I gotta go back to the moisture farm." You know what I'm saying? I was like, "Dude, you don't want to say that you want to leave." You know what I'm saying? But the wise sage tells you, "Man, you gotta come with me to do this." You know what I'm saying? It's one of my favorite scenes in New Hope. And add on to that when they run into my man Solo, who did throw him off of his game. He didn't have the money to pay off Jabba or whatever.
Sometimes people gotta get shot.
Sometimes you get shot, which is beautiful. I don't know why Lucas is backing off of that. I don't know. He's trying. I mean, kids will understand that. You know what I'm saying? Kids understand murder a lot better than you know. You know what I'm saying? So he murdered that dude so he could get away. You say he was a scoundrel, man. That's what scoundrels do. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the story is executed on those simple levels pretty well. Even introducing the concept of the Force on a simple level that works through this movie. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to get into it all that heavy, but it was introduced in a way that kind of fell apart as you go forward, but So, any other thoughts?
I mean, we're not going to get into it too deep here about the Force and so forth, because I don't necessarily feel like it starts to fall apart until, we get into the prequels. But, that's neither here nor there. I mean, I agree in terms of, I think when you start to look at the execution, I think that's when slightly the wheels start to come up off this thing just a little bit. Like I do have problems with Kenobi's and Skywalker's relationship just off the jump. Like you said, he's this old dude, and I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was, your old grandpappy who, you spent time with, he come over to the house and we hang out. Nah, this dude's crazy. It's strange, he's tore up inside, because he told him about my daddy. I knew your father back in the day. So what? Okay, it's a lot of stuff there that just, it doesn't necessarily gel for me. And I would argue that pacing is slightly off in the New Hope, so it drags a bit. And this is, and I don't want people to misunderstand. I've come up on a lot of movies, whereas they can go slow. I don't have a problem with the slow burn, but this movie drags a bit. Pacing is slightly off in this one, so.
Where does the drag kick in for you?
I mean, it drags because it's like you said, it's a 2.5 hour movie, and essentially, we got to go through him, looking off into space. Uncle Owen, I really want to get out of here. It's a whole bunch of crying to get out of there. It's a lot to get this thing moving, and it doesn't really get moving until we get to Old Ben, and then it's a bit of drag in the middle. So it's not as seamless as I feel like, and we'll get to episode 5 in a bit, but I feel like that's a little bit smoother in terms of pacing. I just feel like it improves as we get further along. And I don't want to, jump on Alan's bandwagon, but, again, the director changes. So you note these changes in execution, but, that's neither here nor there. But that's where I'm at with it. Just execution, I felt like it was solid. It wasn't great.
Okay. Another thing I appreciated in terms of the execution is they had, even though I guess you could say there could be some drag at the opening. They had that opening. They had the little rescue moment where they have to go get Leia, which, R2 and I forgot to bring them in as characters. R2 and C-3PO. They're fine, I'm cool with them. They got a bit annoying as you go on, but I'm fine with them. They serve their purpose. The rescue in the middle basically serves for a bonding point for the big three, which I think works.
I think so too. I agree.
Yeah. They have to matter. You know what I'm saying? They have to matter to each other for this thing to work, which is fine. And the old mentor taking his L at the end to save his apprentice, fine too. The element of the Death Star was cool once. Okay. I was fine with that. So it's not a problem right now because we're in New Hope. The Death Star is fine. I mean, technically, if Luke doesn't have the Force and doesn't get that shot off, it's a big win for them because you ain't taking that thing down. I don't care what you thought. The rebellion was done. So he pulled a miracle. All right, fine. You know what I'm saying? Once. So I'm gonna leave that alone. So
spoilers, Jose.
yeah. If you had never seen Star Wars before, don't worry about it. You're gonna find out soon. But I go with y'all. Then the overall impression, I give it a grade of. I give it, especially for the time, taking into the point. This is what 1977.
Yeah, 77.
Yeah, I give it an A. I give it an A. It's not it ain't on the waterfront or nothing like that, but it's not supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? As a popcorn serial kickoff intro movie, I go ahead and just give it an A.
I will give it an A as well. With a time period for it already not having an established history, and good use. Like I really do like the characters, especially the three main characters. So you have, because they're on three different journeys, even though they're on the same. So you have Leia, who has a purpose in the story. She's the face of the rebellion. She's going directly at Vader. Then you have the ideologue, who's Luke, who wants to get in there, but then, as you said, he reneged as soon as the opportunity came up. He got them cold feet, but he got dragged into it anyway. And then he came into his own by the end of the movie, somewhat, sort of. And then you have Han Solo, who brought a different dynamic. It's kind of like the working man. It's like I'm doing this for some money. You ain't got no money. It is what it is. But then he found some other things. Like by the end, like the universe, this higher purpose was kind of there. So it was a growth movie for essentially everyone but Leia. But she was the building blocks to help those two come into their own as well. So it's kind of the Trinity. So for that, this is probably the only movie I'm going to give an A.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Dave?
I give this movie a B.
Be honest, dude. That's fair.
If I'm being real, and I guess we'll get into this later, it's my least favorite of the three. And
yes. Wow.
I thought it was great. I mean, like we said, it came out in 77, so I don't remember life without Star Wars. It's always been, my earliest memories, yada, yada, yada. Great. I love it. I don't want to say I wouldn't call it the weakest of the three, but it's my least favorite. I'll say that. So it gets a B for me.
And this interesting point is with me, I saw them in reverse order. I saw Jedi in the theaters, Empire on VHS, and then New Hope.
Okay.
Because before I saw Jedi, I didn't know. I had the toys when I was a kid. I didn't know what it applied to. I just had them because they look cool. You know what I'm saying? But then I actually, in '83, I went to the theaters and actually saw it. I said, "Oh, this is tight." And then reverse order went back to see them, and I was like, "Okay, cool." So yeah. All right. So we got A, and B. Now we get to Empire. With concept we already basically established. The only thing we would add to the concept is this is the sequel. That this is the progression of the story. You know what I mean? We got everybody introduced that needed to be introduced. Now we're into the second phase of the story. Characters, any new additional characters that you thought that were of interest or that you really like? Start with Al. At this point.
Was this the one where no.
Empire, dude. So.
Yeah. I can't think of any new characters that came up.
You get Lando.
Who? Lando?
Okay,
I couldn't remember whether he was in Jedi or.
He was a Jedi as well, but he comes in this one.
I did like Cool Breeze Lando.
Yeah.
That was a knock up. Civil rights across the universe.
Yeah.
And I actually see somebody be a little bit more duplicitous.
Yeah.
Some suave, more so than Han Solo.
Yeah.
So that was good. I'm just very appreciative with this movie when it comes to the plot and the story that it was a new director and I think a co-writer.
Yeah.
New co-writer. So this movie had more depth to it, more depth than you would actually, surprising amount of depth actually compared to the first one.
And that's a big point that you bring up too, because this is a change. The concept stays the same because it's Lucas' original concept, but you got different creators on it who are putting a different spin on it, and it feels different just from the outset. It's a little bit more.
It's a little bit more hurry.
Yeah.
Dave's point, like there's a little bit more urgency, even though they said it was urgent in the first one. You never really got that feeling that it was urgent. This one, there's a sense of urgency to a lot of what they do.
True. Yeah, it's true.
We got Yoda too.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, because they introduced him.
Yeah, we got Yoda. We got old man Yoda. We gotta say that now since we got baby Yoda.
Yeah. Which actually expands a few things. So let me get Dave.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
I think, you know, this was Star Wars Plus. So I honestly feel like it's very rare in which you'll honestly say the sequel is better than the original. You can, you know, Superman 2, you've got
Terminator 2,
Godfather 2, Terminator 2, and Empire Strikes Back, in which the sequel.
Aliens.
How's that again?
Aliens.
Okay, yeah. Alien. In which the sequel is better than, you know, the original, and I think it's Star Wars Plus, you know, and you do get the idea that in some instances where Lucas felt like it was going to be a one-off. In the first one, you know, he killed Obi-Wan, and then he needed a mentor again because he needed to get him to that next level. You know, you feel like, you know, it doesn't necessarily. He don't mess nothing up, but you know, you see there are slight changes as the story goes on. You know, like at this point in time, you know, you got this potential love triangle. I don't want to get into because you know I was talking. I don't want to get into it, you know, because I can tell you, I don't know exactly how I saw him because I can't say because essentially, this one comes out essentially the year that, you know, a couple of us are born. You know, and then the next one comes out. So, you know, I can't say that I recall when they hit the theaters. I know that I saw them, and I saw them separately because I know as a kid, prior to seeing the third one, and I don't even know when that took place. So I'm assuming it was on TV. They came out day after. I was a Luke and Leia kind of cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, Han wasn't my dude. You know, it wasn't what it was. And, you know, that third one threw me for a loop, but it is what it is. We're not going to get
and that's an element that we kind of we didn't get from New Hope was that it seemed like they were pointing in the direction of a romantic dynamic between Luke and Leia.
Generation story.
Yeah.
You got to have a love interest.
Yeah.
So
as we go into this one, that love triangle actually starts to come into
to cement. You start to see, you know, whatever. Because, you know, that wasn't no brother-sister kiss. But, you know, we can give it all that. You know, my sister ain't never kissed me like that.
That was the force was pulling me towards your lips.
Yes. Who's having it? For all kinds of reasons. You know what I'm saying? Another element that was added to character-wise was the Emperor.
Yeah. I mean, he was cemented. He was an individual at this point in time. I mean, but ultimately he was.
So the hierarchy of the empire is coming in it's pretty much it's in view now.
Yeah.
Emperor, Vader is his side man. I don't even know if he has a designation. You know, he's Darth Vader. You know.
Yeah.
You don't actually. We never heard the word Sith. I don't think.
We don't hear Sith until the prequel trilogy.
Yeah. So essentially, Vader is a henchman to the top henchman of the Emperor.
And we don't get a true distinction between Jedi and Sith. We just he's on the dark side of the Jedi, so we just assume it's one big thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, two separate orders. But yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, so we know what we're dealing with in terms of the Empire. The rebellion, we meet some people and some people. Yeah, the fish fella, what's his name?
Admiral Akbar.
Akbar.
He shows up in this one?
I think does Akbar show up in this one? He might show up in the third.
I know Mon Mothma shows up in the third one.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
So it takes a little longer for the rebellion to come into clearer view because we don't necessarily see, because we see them leaving. Was it Hoth?
Mm-hmm.
They find him on Hoth. We see them leave. He ends up on Dagobah, and they end up in Cloud City. So you see. So I don't know that the structure of the rebellion comes into clear view in this one. But I think character-wise, I liked all the additional characters that showed up in this one.
Okay.
I love the Emperor. I love Lando. I think he's awesome. I'm always a fan of duplicity. And
Yoda.
Yoda, love Yoda.
Yeah.
But he was very entertaining. So I enjoyed the additional characters. I think you do see some. I wouldn't say you necessarily see growth layer-wise per se from what you got of her in A New Hope versus what you get of her in Empire Strikes Back. I'll have to give that some more thought, honestly. I think you see progression in terms of Luke, Han. The only characters I find that don't ever really progress are Chewie, C-3PO, and R2-D2. Never progressed.
We never even mentioned Chewie to this point. That's a good thing.
I mean,
he's a side man. He's a side.
I mean, he's a.
See, I thought Chewbacca was a female.
No, he's a male. I don't think.
I mean, I thought the one that was with Solo was a female.
Nah.
I gotta go.
I think Chewie's a.
You been a dude the whole time, right?
I thought he was a guy.
Yeah. But
that would be awesome, if all this time we thought
I ran across that somewhere, but I'll double check it.
Another element that we hadn't brought up yet, is especially going into Empire, is a time skip. Because we actually progressed forward to the point where these guys have been fighting for I don't know how long. There's been a skip between the end of New Hope and the beginning of Empire, where we established that Luke is now what? What is he, a commander? He's got rank. He actually had.
He had something.
He was just a cat at the end of New Hope. He was a dude that he got rid of the Death Star, which got him cred, no doubt. But he was just a cat that they pick up from the moisture farm at that point. Now I think he's a commander.
I think he's a commander too. He leads a squadron. So.
Yeah. I'm assuming that took a little bit of time, although he probably got an instant boost from taking off of it.
He took out the Death Star.
Yeah, he got that medal, and he also got rank.
He didn't to save Alderaan, but he did. He did.
And I think Solo is still a captain.
Yeah, Well,
actually, he's a captain within the rebellion. First, he was just a captain of a ship, which didn't mean nothing to the rebellion, but now he's actually a captain ranked in the rebellion. So, that. In turn, where we at now, the plot is awesome because they given the rebels are on the run. You figure at the end of the last one, they had their little party and they handed out medals and everything looked like it's on the upswing. But then Vader finds out at some point. He finds out that this dude that blew up the Death Star. I guess he knew that once he sensed the Force was with Skywalker, and he wanted to find out. He either knew who he was, or he wanted to find out, capture him, and find out who he was. At this point, I'm thinking he knows that this dude is his son.
He has to. The dude,
he was coming at him too hard.
I had, we've only encountered the few Skywalkers. It doesn't seem like everybody in their moment got that name.
That's right, because that's true. Because did he know his name? Because when you look at the expanded universe, he had to find out who he was.
I see.
Then he caught his name, and then he knew that's his son.
Okay.
I think in the comic, I think there was comics that covered that. He went and made inquiries, and then said, "Oh, that's so and so, his last name is Skywalker. Why he would be still going under his last name, I don't know. Because plot wise, we gotta go into that a little bit too. Cause
but that's prequel stuff, man. And it just
that's true. Okay, well, let's not touch that right now. But for some reason, he was still going by the name Skywalker. To make him an easy mark, you know what I'm saying, for whatever. Let that go.
You hide him out with his name on his home planet, and I just
I mean, Lord, Leia Organa works.
I got you, because it was a surprise to even George Lucas that they were sitting. But but Luke Skywalker on that man's home planet, it's a bit of a blower,
Probably a mistake.
Remember that? Oh, well, I guess getting into the prequels, that was a planet that he refused to go back to.
Yeah, that's true. He wasn't going to go there as far as they know.
But a question, because I really can't remember. So was there ever a point in either one of the two sequels that Vader acknowledged that Leia was his daughter? Or was it just, because I just remember him going after Luke.
Well, yeah, so ultimately at the end of this Return of the Jedi, essentially he reads that information off of Luke. He messes up. And he says, I don't necessarily need you anymore. You know what I'm saying? If you don't come with me now, I'm going to go get your sister. So, yes, he realizes he has twins.
Okay. Now, why wasn't he able to read that off of Leia? Outside of not being written that way.
So
Leia didn't know. So ultimately, it works in the story.
I thought it would be like a field. I thought there would be a field with the Force, though. So you have to know information to get the Force to reinforce it.
I guess you got to be active with it.
You have to be activated, and she was not activated. So at no point during the series did we see an activated Force user Leia until we get into the sequel trilogy.
Right. Okay.
Which she's flying, but we're not going.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that.
Not yet. Now, and now I'm gonna ask this question: are you satisfied? We're basically on plot right now. Are you satisfied with Luke's training
in terms of
in Empire?
I'm going to say, because like you said, if you look at it just as a movie, you're like, well, he just goes to this planet, he gets some training here and there. There are time skips. So Lucas, I don't necessarily have a problem with this trilogy, as long as you keep it as this trilogy. It doesn't start to really truly fall off the rails until you start to expand things a little bit more. But ultimately, there's a time skip between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. So Luke is working on stuff on his own. It's not like he's a straight up novice. He's able to use telekinesis. He's able to do things with the Force. He's able to feel out things. So whatever he was taught by Obi-Wan, the very brief scene that he got, he's able to expand on that foundation well enough that he's not a bum.
Right.
He's using his full potential.
Right.
And I think Yoda pushes him further along that road, and he gets further along because again, there's a time skip between Empire and Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. So you see more growth in terms of his power. So he's not a Rey.
Who's a Rey?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about here. He's saying apologies. I'm okay with his progression.
Okay.
I mean, it's no Rocky training montage, but it's okay. I'm with David. He went through the time skip. He had a slight foundation that he was able to build on. He picked up, I guess, some familiarity with the Force throughout, by the end of A New Hope, and then he ran into Yoda, and Yoda was, who better is going to be able to train you if not Yoda? Mm-hmm. So, he gave him what he could with his time left. And, so, yeah.
And
I'm happy with it. It made sense to me.
I think what you say is true. It made sense within the framework of where we are in the story. Like in New Hope, he wasn't required at any time to use the Force to do anything except for guide his shot to take out the Death Star.
Yeah.
At this point, he's getting whatever he learned on his own was still probably not even up to a Padawan level until he runs into Yoda. I think when he runs into Yoda, he at least gets the Padawan level. You know what I mean? In his abilities. Because he, doing stuff like using your Force to expand your feelings, to definitely to move objects and stuff like that. I think you'd have learned that ground level if you were at the Jedi Academy in the old days. So I don't think he's got any exceptional training up until now, but it fits essentially for the L that he takes to Vader. Because I mean, people, you can't. Some people look at the fight. I look at their fight as being epic in terms of its emotionals, the emotional ties that are going down. Luke is coming after dude for blood. You know what I'm saying? As far as he knows, this is a dude that killed my father. He killed my mentor that I knew for them. And I want him dead. Vader don't want nothing but to turn this dude or to capture him. He got no interest in killing him whatsoever. So that was not a fight. You know what I'm saying? It might have been a fight from Luke's standpoint.
Right.
But Vader could have killed him whenever he felt like it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was not necessary, it didn't mean nothing to him out in terms of a battle. Because you're talking about a dude that had experience. He fought Sith. You know what I'm saying? He fought actual people. This is Luke's first spar with anybody, as far as we know.
I mean, with lightsabers,
it may be the expanded universe, which I'm not that informed on. He might have fought somebody with a lightsaber, but as far as we know, in terms of a major fight, this is his first major fight, and he was not supposed to go on it. Because Ben and Yoda told him expressly, do not fight that man. You're not ready. But dude, he was out for his friends, which is consistent with his character.
I mean, the thing is, who else is going to fight him, though? If not Luke, who?
For all he knows, and it's true, from his standpoint, for all he knows, who else was going to stand up to him? Definitely to get his friends back.
Luke, after the time skip between, Empire and Return of the Jedi, at that point in time, you worked on you've honed your craft, your skill. Now you go ahead and see it. But, he was a bum when he gave
That's a good point right there, because Jedi, I mean, going off on a little tangent for a second, Jedi do get kind of cocky with this. They get a little bit of training. So, Luke was feeling himself.
He was.
And Vader played him. He played him. He got his friends.
He did.
He knew he was bound and determined to get back.
You
just basically said, come on.
You even Vader tuning up that fiddle. Like, wait a minute, here we go.
He played him. He played him for a fool, basically, and appealing to his feelings for his friends, which is what you do, and got him into a situation where he was doomed. He escaped. You know what I'm saying? There's no win. He took it. Lost their hand. If that Joker kept going, only thing that he had going for him is that Vader didn't want to kill him.
That's real. And I'm gonna tell you this too. In like the ending, the joke came out of nowhere. I'm trying to tell you, like, I don't know how I watched these movies. I don't know how they came into my being, but I remember having an argument with my brother about there's no way Luke is really Darth Vader's son. So, like, no, it's impossible. It was real.
And look, that's weird because, again, I watched them in reverse order, right? When they were putting out the toys, right, they had commercials that questioned whether Luke was really, or Vader was really Luke's son, which spoiled it for me, having not had, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's going into seeing Jedi. You know what I'm saying? Because I'd already seen the commercials where they question, is Vader really Luke's father? I'm like,
Can't be.
What does that mean?
He just said that he's a villain.
You know what I'm saying? So I kind of irritated by that. They shouldn't have put that in the commercial, you know, but whatever. That's just a little irritating. They spoiled it for me a little bit because when I actually saw it go down, I was like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? But I already knew that.
Don't realize how much
you know,
teenage Jose was. You know,
I did.
He was about it. It's just no spoiler alert. Come on.
So I'm gonna ask both of you. When I guess you kind of already answered that, Dave. But did you see that like basically in real time in terms of as you went through the story? Was that cliffhanger a cliffhanger for you?
Yes, it was a cliffhanger for me because however I saw them, I'm assuming this was VHS or when they were rebroadcasting on television because you know we were watching them in order. I saw them in order. I do know that. So there was a break in between me seeing episode 5 and seeing episode 6. I legitimately had an argument that there's no way Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker. Like I legitimately had it. I was sincerely Team Luke in regards to winning Leia's heart. Like this is like I recall this. Like that was my childhood. Me running around in my underoos and that Luke Skywalker T-shirt. It was real. It was serious.
Hey, Alan.
I actually saw Empire Strikes Back first.
Okay.
VHS. And then I saw Return of the Jedi. So I didn't actually see A New Hope until I was well into my teenage years. Like I was actually at Banneker when I saw that movie for the first time.
Oh yeah.
It was so all the appreciation that I gave it to today, I didn't give it then because I was like, this is hella boring. Like the entire movie is hella boring. So
Empire?
No, A New Hope.
Okay.
I saw Empire Strikes Back first on VHS. Then I saw Jedi, and then.
So you hadn't seen Star Wars?
Huh?
You hadn't seen Star Wars?
I hadn't seen the original. No. And it just, I don't know, just whatever. So I have like an appreciation for it now, and I have a really good appreciation for Empire Strikes Back. Only because they went in, like how you guys brought up earlier, A New Hope. George Lucas didn't know whether he was going to get a sequel to it. Sequels weren't a big thing back then, trilogies and whatnot. So, you know, he's kind of a pioneer in that. So he wrote it where that could have been the end of the movie. That's why it was the parade and everything at the end and whatnot. It left on a good tone. But when you get to Empire Strikes Back, it fit like it's set up for continuation. And for that, I did appreciate it. Like, I mean, it was more being added to it, but you didn't have to actually look at A New Hope. So that's why I wasn't lost when I saw Empire Strikes Back. Like, it was its own starting point of the series, of the whole lore, while at the same time building on A New Hope. So, you know, just for that in itself, I'll give it an A.
So at that climactic scene where he says, you know, I'm your father, you were shocked at that point, right?
Obi-Wan never told you.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yo, that joke was real. Yeah.
I wasn't shocked, but it was a plot twist.
Yeah.
When they say M. Night Shyamalan's twist.
The original M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, you know, M. Night Shyamalan always has those weird twists.
Right.
Kind of fake. Right. So it wasn't that, but they, you know, kind of remember when he went into the cave and he had the vision? Yeah. Like Vader. So, and then it was all built up. So with the thing I got out of it, which wasn't a big thing back then, wasn't that it was his father. It was that, oh, these Jedi lied to you. The entire movie, they've been lying. Yoda lied to you, and then you find out that Obi-Wan lied. They knew who your father was. They sent you to kill your father.
Yeah.
That's dirty.
I mean, Obi-Wan tells him, what I told you was true.
He did kill your father because he was.
He turned on us in doing so. He did kill your father. I thought it was like an incredible cliffhanger. That done caught me.
Okay.
It caught me. I was done. I was.
See how it destroyed your life.
It did. Honestly.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna ask you a question.
All
now,
right.
from this, we pretty much covered all of the points except for the final grade. But from this point, how has the movie affected your understanding or impression of the Jedi and the Force?
That's a great question. Great question.
Go ahead, Al. You go first.
And we're just going off of this movie?
Yeah, because I mean, Yoda expands the Force a bit. Because he actually, from him, we get the first actual idea of what the Force is. You know?
Right. And that's why I told you, like the Force is really simple in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Force starts to get complicated in this one because then you get to, grades of understanding of the Force, which leads to grades of. So it's like having a sword and you being a different level of master swordsman.
Okay.
As to how you can wield it. So looking back now, it was ridiculous that Luke Skywalker thought that he could confront Vader. It was ridiculous. Like just utterly ridiculous. And when you said, the Force just gave him like a high, I assume that he was unstoppable, which happens, but you were essentially a Padawan going up against not just a master, but a Sith master that we know now had hunted down other legitimate masters and knights. And you with your little training and understand, I mean, he really didn't even have an understanding of the Force itself, to the fact that you guys just said he wasn't able to shield that Leia was his sister, hence his daughter. So it like I said, that's when it starts to get confusing. This is when everything kind of starts, that kind of like, with the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've grown up in a superhero society with, Superman, Batman, the X-Men, and everything like that. So to actually not have a defined power, because the Force can literally be used in whatever way that they feel like that they want to use it. I've never seen a Sith fly or a Force user fly, but I don't know why they can't.
No.
They'd be able to lift themselves and just fly somewhere. I don't know.
Like when he fell down the shaft after, getting his hand cut off, did he angle himself into that chute? I thought he did, right?
I would assume he did too.
I think he angled it.
You haven't seen one fly. You must not have seen episode 8.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
But go ahead, Dave. What's your like I say, the Jedi and the Force?
I don't know that you get a clearer understanding of what the Jedi represent in this trilogy. So outside of they are Force users. So ultimately, I just you think of them as I guess if you want to call them samurai, you can call them samurai. You want to call them priest, you can call them priest. You get an idea that this is what this represents. You don't get an idea as to what that order looks like, what that means truly outside of your Force user. So once you learn how to use the Force, I guess in theory, I assumed at that point in time that then you were a Jedi, regardless of if you were good or bad. You were just a Jedi in that regard. In terms of the Force, I think, like I said, I don't think it gets muddled too bad for me. In this one, Yoda says, you let it flow through you. It's some kind of spirit or something, energy, but you let it flow through you, and you can move stuff and you can do stuff as long as you open yourself up to it. You can do more with it than what you were doing. You can't just you can do more than just catch a laser beam. You can do more than just guide a shot. You can lift big ass space. You know what I'm saying? Little ships. You can move these things. You can do all this stuff. Rocks. I'm gonna stand on your shoulder while you do it. You can do a whole bunch of stuff. Stand on one hand and lift stuff. So,
okay,
including but not limited to hiding yourself at some obscure planet in the galaxy for years.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what a Jedi Master do. I'm sorry, but that's getting
you going into other stuff.
That's okay. Moving forward. I'm sorry.
All right. So from my standpoint, you see the Force is to me, it's still cosmic chi. You know what I'm saying? It's like external chi.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's an external force that it binds everything, it's in everything, that you can manipulate if you're sensitive to it.
And you can flow through you and through.
Right.
Hey, I'm with you.
Use it. So that's and it, like I say, it gets weirder and weirder as we go across. But to this point, it's still, understandable or relatable to a point. Mm-hmm. And as far as the Jedi go, we don't know anything about the Sith yet, so we just assume that Vader is a fallen Jedi. And we don't know exactly what Palpatine is. Was he a Jedi too? We don't know because all we know is there's
a thing about him. Yeah.
So there's a dark side, and a light side. It seems pretty arbitrary at this point because, we stop here. We'll stop with that because
it's not important yet, though.
Yeah, it's not important. Yeah, but as we go along, to my mind, it gets kind of arbitrary, but whatever. So we go into the final installment, Return of the Jedi. So
we didn't grade this one yet.
Oh yeah, right. Grade. Give me your grades for Empire Strikes Back.
Dave should go first since he gave it a B last time.
All right. I gave Empire Strikes Back an A.
Okay. All right. Alan?
I give it an A as well.
Okay, I give it an A plus because it was better than.
Wait a minute, you didn't say nothing about the plus and minus.
You do what you want, man. In fairness, if we're not gonna do plus, I'll downgrade New Hope to B.
No. I didn't use plus and minus when we get to the next movie, but I got you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna give that an A plus because it was better than New Hope, on every level, and it had a cliffhanger, which is crazy because up until that point, I hadn't seen a movie.
With the cliffhanger?
Franchise. Yeah, in the franchise, they had a cliffhanger, maybe with the exception of. No, I can't think. Even Wrath of Khan, you can't say there was a cliffhanger.
No.
You didn't know that he was going to raise Spock from the dead, yeah.
I mean, Spock is dead. Yeah,
it was just done, you know.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler.
Yeah. That movie. Go check it out. Nice flip.
Okay, so for that reason, there's a uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
And it was very, very well. It was more of a, professional job. Yeah, I say a professional job than New Hope.
No, Luke is bashing.
I'm not bad. I mean, look, clearly the director was better than the first director, which can't be. Nobody's really going to contest that. So it had better directing, better script. Acting for performances, the actors were given more to do, so they put in better performances.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. All right. So, all right, now we go to the infamous Return of the Jedi.
It's infamous?
Yes, to me, infamous for reasons that I will get into.
All right.
We're going to skip over concept because we know that this is just the cap of the arc. All right, that's what it has to be. It has to cap off this arc. All of the characters that we needed have been supplied, with the exception of the infamous Ewoks, which burned this Joker to the ground for me.
Ewoks as a child. I'm gonna tell you, I love the Ewoks.
The Ewoks was some trash, and they burned it to the ground for me. And this is just me on my feelings, all right?
Jose.
I'm trying not to get into my feelings. I'm trying to be.
You clearly are. You're not doing a good job.
Because this is where commercialism got into it. He was selling toys already just based on people that were in the story.
Right, but you get them licensing deals, and licensing deals bringing that money.
That's true, but he was already getting the money.
So I'm sorry. So if you were the Ewoks with like the Wookiees, would you been okay with that?
The Wookiees served a purpose.
I'm sorry.
At least the one Wookiee that we needed.
Well, I'm saying expanded the universe.
Expanded the universe to many Wookiees that didn't make a difference.
They were cute.
Yeah, they were cute, dude.
What's wrong with that, man? You got some cute things that throw rocks at you.
That's a mainstay of Star Wars now.
Cute now, yeah.
That's cute.
This is where the slope started going down for me. Because man gave into his baser instincts of selling stuff. You know what I'm saying? He had a tight story up until this point. To me, this was supposed to go higher than Jedi. You know what I'm saying? He set himself up to go higher than Jedi. You know what I mean?
In A New Hope. I know. I feel you, Jose. It hurt me to my heart too.
I mean, than Empire. He was supposed to go higher than Empire on this one.
I don't know. So, like for me, well, I'm gonna start off this because I know it is what it is. So this is my favorite.
Are you serious? Okay, go ahead. No, speak.
Now, I mean, we got into.
I haven't heard nobody say that before.
Hold on a second. Like I don't even like you chuckled heartily, but I'm just gonna tell you off the break. This is my favorite of the three. I still love Return of the Jedi. I still the joint rocks. we'll get into how we graded and the execution and so forth, because I'm able to separate what I think of the quality of a movie. But this is definitely a popcorn flick, so it definitely is what it is. So I'm able to say this ain't Citizen Kane. I'm good, I will say this. For me, I don't necessarily have a problem with the inclusion of the Ewoks. What happens in this one is it's a space opera. The Skywalker Saga is meant to be the Skywalker's space. It's a space opera, and I will say, Return of the Jedi makes it into a space soap opera, and it becomes soapier in this one. So it's one of those situations where we did get that cliffhanger. Vader is that man's father. I got you. Well, now he's got the twin sister and whatever. It's like it's. I don't want to say it's All My Children-esque, but it's definitely it goes from being a space opera to being a space soap opera here, and so I can tell you in that regard. I can say that I felt like there is story-wise a definitive downslope in regard to execution from the previous installment to this one. So I'll tell you that off the break.
Okay.
Because I know you looked at me hard when I said, and I got a chuckle. When I said, this is my favorite, but whatever.
Alan?
So from A New Hope to Strikes Back or to Empire, you have it where you're on the hero's journey, right? The beginning and the middle of the Skywalker Saga. And then in the Return of the Jedi, you have it like there's a shift that doesn't necessarily work for me, especially as you look back on it now. So you have a hero's not journey, but his journey has shifted now. So his journey is not really to bring down the Empire. Technically, it's to redeem his father. So it's a two Skywalker story now. And even though you have a third Skywalker, they don't really play into it in the same sense. So what Dave said, it's a soap opera instead of being a Odyssey. And they didn't really give it enough time to make that kind of shift for the character. So Vader, I mean, just the love of his son, kind of just wiped out whatever, you know what I'm saying? It wiped out whatever. So, you understand why kind of Lucas did what he did with the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make that attachment as to, Vader himself. Because I didn't feel it was deserved that Vader should have that kind of
redemption,
peaceful ending. Yeah, that redemption. It didn't play out because throughout the entire story, the only thing he really did that was redemptive, I guess, was that he saved his son from the Emperor. But you would expect that of him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would expect that from just him, just because the whole entire, all he was doing what the Emperor did to him was, you have power, I have power, we can take down this old guy and we can rule the universe. Like, he never really was being redemptive in himself. It just so happens that, the Emperor had the same idea that he did. It was like, oh, well, you're the old dude, so I can get you out. You're burnt out and everything. This guy got all his limbs, so I can use and mold him. And he was just like, well, you're gonna, crap me over, and you're gonna go after my son now to like put me in this worse position, which honestly would have been a better story if Luke would have died and Vader would have had to deal with that. See, if Vader would have killed the Emperor, but at the same time, the Emperor succeeded in killing him. So what kind of person would he have been? Would he have all of a sudden like dismantled the Empire? Like, it didn't hold up. And then you just throw the Ewoks in too. It's just like, I don't understand nothing that they're saying, and they're it was inventive though. It was creative.
And I'm gonna follow up on what you're saying, because when he says in Empire, come with me, we'll put an end to the senseless conflict and rule the galaxy as father and son. Was that a line, or was he dead serious? Was he saying basically this conflict is senseless? Let's me and you put an end to it and we'll rule. Or was he saying that to get, now in retrospect, having seen the sequels, we can answer that easily, but at this point of the story, is he trying to be redeemed? Or does he just want to be the topper on the top of the ladder?
He wants to be the top. That's the way I took it. Because he said we're going to put it into this senseless conflict and we'll rule the galaxy together. He's still going to rule the galaxy. Like, what are you putting it into? You're putting it into anybody standing up against you. So he still wants to crush the rebellion.
That's the question.
He wants to take the Emperor out with Luke right there. He's not being redemptive. You don't deserve to become part of the Force.
Yeah. I mean, where you at on it, Dave?
I agree with you. I don't know. I've never necessarily felt. I mean, ultimately, the one thing he did was save his boy, and you know, if he
A plus for being a father.
you know, I don't know that he earned true redemption at this point, because like you say, when you look at when you start to expand things and you start to look at when you add the prequel trilogy in, and you get the idea of not even the prequel trilogy, that empty space between episode 3 and episode 4, and you understand, you know, the devastation. I mean, hell, the end of episode 3 to episode 4, where he's killing younglings, he's doing all kinds of stuff. So the level of atrocities committed by Darth Vader are just whatever. And this act of like being a father, you know, just the idea that I'm not going to let this dude kill my boy. I don't know that I necessarily. I'm with you. So it's not earned redemption. But I'm going to point out, though, in Lucas's defense, this is a kid's story. Right. So the idea is there is redemption at the end of the road. I mean, it's a small little whatever. Like, I don't know. See, my problem is at this point, I think, you know, you want a lot, Jose. I feel like you want, you know, whatever. And it's a kid's story. You know, it is what it is. You know, he's not like as
I
adult.
I can see that.
Huh?
I can see that.
As adults, if you look at a story and you look at this, it's not going to work out, because in my mind, you know, you killed younglings, dude. Like, at that point, it's a wrap. You know, like, you're a monster. Like, I don't know what you could have done at this point in time that's going to make you all right in my book. Like, you just massacred those children. Master Anakin. Oh, you know, I just don't know.
That was cold-blooded, yo.
Nothing you could do at that point in time. I mean, and when we get to that point, we're going to talk about how out of character I thought that was.
Yeah. I think that was a mistake in and of itself.
Yeah, Lucas didn't get the shift either. Like, but that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the prequels.
Right.
We talk about it. You know, but yes, I don't necessarily feel like he earned redemption as I don't feel like he earned that. I can, you know, agree to that.
I'm in a mixed opinion on this, because even if you just go with the performance, right? When you hear when he's reaching out, when Vader is reaching out to Luke at the end of Empire, you know, when they escaped, they got away from Cloud City, and he's like, "My son," right? There's like a tenderness in that when he says that. He cares about his son for whatever reason, or for however he can separate the atrocities that he's committed towards finding his son, which maybe he thought he had been cheated out of a chance for redemption. If he'd had his kids, maybe he would have turned out different, or I don't know what's on his mind, but he cares for going along with whatever the Emperor's doing, and he was just waiting for his time. Then he finds his son, and he figures this could put me over the top, and we can tear him down. Now, what he wants to put in the Emperor's place, I don't know. What his vision of sense, as opposed to senseless, I have no idea. To me, at that point, it's just me at the top.
I mean, I agree with Alan in that I always took that line to be, and then this going off of, and you know, I don't want to add the prequels too much, but going off of it and knowing what we know about, I mean, he's a feeler. I believe 110% when he said there's a tenderness in his voice. I believe he loved it as soon as there's a connection. That's my boy. That's his boy, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. I also feel like, and this is when you add in what you know about the prequels, because I actually believe as long as Lucas had the story, the story lines up. It is what it is. You can talk about execution if you want to, which we'll get into how it fell off the rails. The story lines up. Plot-wise, it is what it is. And I'm under the impression that essentially I'm just going to knock the Emperor off and I'm going to sit in that spot. The conflict is senseless because these people are fighting and we're bringing order here. And you can see all these shows, you can see whatever, but what was so bad about the Empire? And I don't want to get into
that has to be discussed.
They seemed to be good. The only thing that was going on was you had these rebels messing stuff up. So I don't know how horrible the Empire was, because we never really saw we saw they blew up Alderaan, which is a horrible thing to do. Don't get me wrong, it's a horrible thing, but quite frankly, Alderaan was a bad for rebellion. It was essentially they were growing up rebels. I don't know, man. Like you never really get to see how bad the Empire is. They tell you that it is, and we take it on face value because the heroes are fighting against the Empire. I don't necessarily see it, but ultimately, what I will say is essentially, I'm under the impression that he's going to knock off the Emperor and sit on top of this Empire. So it's senseless violence and conflict senseless because the rebels are bad people. They're doing bad things, and I'm going to stop them. The Emperor can't do it. He can't be successful. But with you and me together, kid, we're going to take over the world, baby. That's how I took it.
Which actually really fits. Try not to go too much, like both of you said, to the prequels, but going into Anakin's psyche, the way that he looked at things. Like even early on, he didn't understand why we just don't. We're right. We're correct in what we're doing. You're incorrect, and because of the way that you are doing things, you're making it worse. So I'm going to put you down and force you to understand that I'm right. So that was his mentality, even when he was being trained as a Jedi, even when he was a knight. That was his mentality. It was just the fact that he was being told.
Master?
Huh? Oh yeah. Well.
He wasn't granted that. I'm sorry.
I guess he kind of was, wasn't he?
He wasn't a master. He didn't get that.
He wasn't a master in psychology. Let's put it that way. He didn't pass that one because he just had those feelings. But then that was the Jedi fault too. So that fit with his personality, where he wouldn't be like. I don't even think he was being nasty with it. Like the Emperor just wanted to rule because he just likes to rule. I'm not even really sure that he really cared about, like, I think he liked the rebellion. Honestly, I think that he liked having an excuse to like destroy things. It just seemed like, because he wasn't really he wasn't too anxious to like really put anybody down. He was like, oh, these little rebels, they can't stop us. Let's blow up the planet, whatever the case is. Vader legitimately wanted to bring. I mean, he was a follower. He was a believer in his own. Well, he was a believer in his own philosophy. Let's put it that way. So he was adamant that he was correct and that everyone else was wrong. I think the Emperor just, he just liked the idea of power. I mean, he was a true Sith. I have it. You want it. I'm not going to give it to you, but I'll dangle it for you.
And I think that runs into a flaw, if you want to call it a flaw. But like I say, this is a young adult child type story, so he didn't want to get into the grand specifics of things. But the Empire and how it was, we both talked about this. How was it so destructive? Alderaan, I mean, it was a terrible blow. That's true. But I said to both of you on different occasions, I equate that to bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mm-hmm. It's only bad from the standpoint of the other person. If you're Japanese, you wasn't feeling it. If you're American, you say, well, it brought an end to this senseless conflict. Okay, well, cool. You know what I'm saying? So if Rebels was there and the Joker had to be blown out, who's to say that, to the victor goes the spoils? You know what I'm saying? History is written by the convicts. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, it had to be done. But if you look outside of that, were people starving? Were they being beaten? Were they being lynched? Did everybody have access to money or whatever? I mean, Alderaan looked pretty good before they blew it up, I guess.
Every place looks good.
I mean, even if you go to Tatooine, I mean, yeah, we went to the one gangster city on Tatooine when we went to pick up. That was that a representation of the entire planet? I mean, they had garrisons all over the place, but there's garrisons all over the world right now. From, United States got, bases all over the place. Does that mean the United States is evil? We're not going to go into that right now, but All I'm saying is the argument can be made that the Empire was just the Empire. It was just a ruling force, and they had people that disagreed with it. Vader, I thought, I'm kind of in line with you on this one, Alan, that he just wanted to impose his will because he thought it was the best way to go. Whether he disagreed with the way the Emperor was doing it, but why sit under some other guy when you can rule yourself? You know, just go ahead and take the jump over. And he thought he could pull it off with his son, and he was probably right. You know, if they jumped, then maybe. You know what I mean? If that was the plan, we'll somehow get together and jump him, and we'll take over and rule his father and son. Did he think that would redeem the things that he had done in the past? I don't see how.
I don't think he was ever looking for redemption.
Possibly not. Which brings us to the end where he's a Force ghost with, you know, noble Obi-Wan and noble Yoda.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a hell in Star Wars, but he probably should have been. You know what I'm saying?
Noble Obi-Wan, noble Yoda, ignoble Anakin.
He should have been hanging with them old school Sith. I get you, you kids, you know what I mean? I'd have got away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. That's where he should have been, or whatever. But it is what it is, you know what I mean? I almost forgot. The second Death Star. Was you feeling that?
No.
As a plot element?
No.
That was a foolish mistake.
I mean,
or the third or the other ones.
It felt like he was going to. It felt like, I mean, not necessarily a problem for me. That the Empire was doing it per se, because I mean, outside of the design flaw, you could see what having a Death Star would mean. So it's not, because like you said, if you want to equate using the Death Star to drop in the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we didn't stop making bombs. So the idea is if the Death Star is meant to be that, then it's meant to be that. I mean, story-wise, you know, it's not a new creative thing. You know, they eliminated the design flaw, and you know, it makes sense that we're gonna have another Death Star. I mean, but we've been there and we've done that. So I don't know. It didn't feel fresh. It didn't feel new. And like I said, I mean, overall, Return of the Jedi is just it's a lot soapier. So you know, it is. You know, what I mean.
All right, well, let's go with the grades, unless. Because we pretty much covered execution, and
Okay.
I'm gonna start this one off, and because I gotta explain a little bit, maybe not even explain. I'm giving this Joker a C because it was passable, but they left a lot on the table. And from what I understand, just looking into some back information, it's not even like a big secret. Either the final battle was supposed to be on Kashyyyk, and all of them dudes were supposed to be Wookiees?
Cookies.
They were supposed to be Wookiees. Whether they were on Kashyyyk or not, I don't know. But they were supposed to be Wookiees, and that would have made sense because Wookiees are warriors, and having them on your side to take out them
Warriors too.
like that. And anyway, they are merchandise. They are merchandise. They're plushies.
Hey, they're warrior
Stuff like that.
They're warrior plushies.
They're plushies. I mean, if you want to make your money, I'm fine. I'm cool. I understand. Merchandise, it makes sense.
I'm trying to tell you, the Care Bears are cute till you get a Care Bear stare in the face too. All I know is just so.
To me, you are further dragging down the Empire in terms of being a viable villain when you're saying that these plushies help you take an enemy base. Come on, man. All you had to do was make the Wookiees and it'd have been fine. You could get the base, take down the shield, and blow up the Death Star. But not only can't your henchmen can't hit nothing,
they're short, Jose. Covered by trees. You know what I'm saying?
Then what you had, I mean, their body armor means nothing. You can knock them with a piece of wood and knock them out. You know what I'm saying?
Hard leather. I don't even understand what your problem is.
Look, like I said, it's a children's story, and in a children's story, plushies can take out armed soldiers fine, I guess. if that's all that you want to do, if you try to make your money, I ain't trying to get in nobody else's pocket. Sorry, fine. But that dumbed down the story to me to put it at a C, where it could have been an A. And the final confrontation between Vader and Luke was satisfactory, but I think it could have, without putting intentions in the man's face, it could have been better. But I'm not totally dissatisfied with how it ended. Him redeeming his father was probably not the way I'd have went in terms of him being fully redeemed, but him favoring his son over the Emperor, I can see that. So I give it a C.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I give it a D. And the only reason why it even gets a D is because of the final fight between Vader, Luke, and the Emperor. Because at this point in the story, like nothing was important about the Emperor, the overall, what had started with A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. It was literally just between, Luke Skywalker, his dad, and the Emperor was the physical representation of the Empire itself. So it was a rejection of the Empire with Vader, accepting his son, the rebellion, quote unquote. I know it's a kid's story, but it was started as a kid's story. In A New Hope, they added depth to the story in The Empire Strikes Back. So I wouldn't fully say that was a kid's story. I think that they took the material seriously, and they wanted to expand it, and then they dumbed it down with Return of the Jedi, which I don't even get the name of it. Like, I understand the Jedi somewhat sort of came back. They excelled over the all the woes of the of the Sith and the Empire, but it doesn't stand up. It's not really a good ending point for this saga that was supposed to be this space odyssey. So it's the worst of the bunch to me. Of these three, there's some other ones I'm pretty sure I'm going to give F's to when I think about it fully. But it's a D. It's a D.
But we know where you're at, David.
David, this thing at A++.
Like a wondrous tale. Or whatever. Go ahead. Shoot.
I gave it a C+.
Oh, wow. What?
Again, I'm gonna make sure we're clear, because it's my favorite. Does not mean it's the best. So what I'll tell you is essentially,
makes sense.
I'm okay with the ending. I think what drags this one down for me is execution. I agree with both of you in so much, because I think, as a whole, I don't have a problem with starting with A New Hope and ending with the ending of Return of the Jedi. They win the day. I got a problem with Vader's redemption arc. If you want to call it that, that's a problem for me, because I don't think that's necessarily earned. I agree in that the Emperor was just I think there was more that you could have worked out with that particular character. I thought the Ewoks were cute, but I agree with everything you said, Jose, in terms of how are you afraid of this empire or this they run around throwing rocks and sticks and
Hard rocks,
laser beams. It's just for the life of me it doesn't. So, and then the whole Leia turn to being his sister. He was like, I pulled this one out. Here we go. Let me. I felt like it's a situation in which stuff wasn't necessarily earned as well as it could have been. So I don't know that he didn't stick the landing. I'll say that. So he didn't stick the landing. Some things, I don't necessarily have a problem with. I know, and I don't want to get too deep into Carrie Fisher had a problem with the metal bikini and all this other stuff. It's a lot of things And then, I'm gonna tell you this, as a story-wise, I actually don't have a problem with that in any way, shape, or form. Because I would argue, Leia did take out Jabba, and if she's not in that metal bikini, I don't know why she's in the scene. I don't want to because then I don't want. Let me defend this real quick because I don't want us to be labeled as sexist. I'm just going to say this. Jabba as a character was known to be chauvinistic. He was very much into lovely ladies. He liked to have a bevy of beauties surrounding him. And Leia had to infiltrate. She used, in this regard, her feminine wiles to be whatever. Outside of the metal, I don't know why she would be there. Her being there, she killed Jabba. So I'm going to tell you this off the break. She took, you could say Luke got Tarkin. Vader got Palpatine.
Well, so we see. Yeah.
And Leia took out Jabba the Hutt. So whatever. So I'm gonna tell you that's what we could get as far as I'm concerned. She one of the hardest mammals going because she choked that dude out. But it is what it is. Whatever.
She took down the underworld.
She took out underworld, like a huge underworld boss, like whatever. But like stuff. I felt like I agree in so much that yes, it's technically a kid story, but ultimately you see a progression because time-wise, people age. So if you were 7 when A New Hope came out, you're 10 by the time Empire Strikes Back comes out, and you're able to appreciate things more. So the story actually, it elevates, and I feel like you see a de-evolution in terms of Return of the Jedi. So it goes from being childlike wonder, and Empire Strikes Back, it's a young teen story, and then it goes back to being a child story. And I'm with you. You could have escalated it. So again, I was a kid when I saw it, so it has a special. So it's very much a nostalgic factor that it means a lot to because I loved it as a kid, and then the Ewoks, Wicked had his own little thing, it was a whole bunch of stuff that factored into how much I love Return of the Jedi. But I can honestly say I understand that of the 3, it's definitely the weakest. So it gets a C+ from me in terms of just whatever.
Okay.
Let me ask this since it was brought up with concerning Leia. Did Leia being presented as Luke's sister hurt her progression as a character from Empire Strikes Back to Jedi to because they picked it back up obviously in the latter movies, but it just seems like outside of her infiltrating Jabba's group and killing him, I can't really remember anything that like she did that was of substance aside from her connection with Han Solo. So is it just me, or am I like I'm probably forgetting something?
I mean, she technically commanded she and Han technically commanded the ground forces, and like you said, it's a bunch of Ewoks. So she, I felt like Leia was a badass.
To us, but would her role have been different? Her on screen, because it seemed like she was more in A New Hope.
I feel like, for all intents and purposes, I honestly feel like her being Luke's sister was just an easy out in terms of the love triangle that they were developing. I thought it was a cop out as opposed to her saying definitively, "Han's my dude. I'm going to whatever." At this point in time, because people like me who were saying Luke should be with Leia, well, you squashed that because that's his twin sister. Yeah, they were making out a little bit, but what twins don't? So I felt like I felt like it was an easy out. So I don't necessarily feel like it weakened or stymied her development as a character. I do feel like it was a cheap out, and I feel like in a lot of ways that speaks to what Return of the Jedi is. It's a cheap out in a lot of ways. It's a cop out in a lot of ways. So you don't earn stuff; you just take advantage.
I think somehow I get the impression that she was kind of, I ain't gonna say she devolved. She got the kill on Jabba. I give her credit for that. But in terms of, if you look at the hierarchy of the rebellion, what you call them, the Solo guy promoted to general, as well as Lando. I don't know how they did something, whatever. Luke is still some kind of commander and highly esteemed. Leia is what? She's what? I mean, like in those meetings where they were plotting strategy, that she didn't come up with nothing. She was just there I mean, she was in on General Solo's mission. She said she would go, but she wasn't like a sub-commander or nothing like that. She was kind of like an add-on.
I felt like she was part of the overall command structure of the rebellion. So I don't know, I looking at Return of the Jedi, you get Mon Mothma, and I get the impression that she's in charge.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Mon Mothma is the leader, but she's not leading an attack on whatever. She's not whatever. She's, if we succeed, then I'll be the new chancellor. And I get the impression that, Leia's Secretary of State. So I never got the impression that, she was, a warrior per se.
Right.
She had badass tendencies. She didn't mind getting her hands dirty. It felt like she was a politician. It always felt like that too.
That's fair.
So I didn't necessarily feel like it was a de-evolution of her character. It spoke to, she's not a part of the military section of the rebellion. She just, if push comes to shove and she got a blaster nearby, she's gonna,
put in work. Okay. One more element is, as I brought in the last one, the evolution of the, well, I ain't even gonna say the Jedi at this point, but the Force. We see another destructive element of the Force through the Emperor. We see that the Force can be used to summon lightning and do some pretty good damage. As we go along, I'm gonna just keep bringing up the Force, so we see how this thing starts to fall off the rails. But up until this point, this was actually an exciting development because we saw another capacity in which the Force could be used.
Yeah,
I mean, man was summoning lightning and getting after people.
That was badass.
That was a game changer because we ain't never seen anything like that before.
It was.
I mean, it'd been nice if Obi-Wan had told Luke, be careful. Some of these members get something like this, so you might deflect that tree with your lightsaber. I had words with him at that party at the end when he came up as the Force Ghost. I'm like, come here. What else can they do? You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't even with lightning. I ain't really seen it.
Well, at least you learned why Vader never stepped to him.
Well, yeah, that's true.
With his master can summon lightning. Put it down. Yeah, I can't figure out.
I mean, he can summon lightning, but he can be picked up and thrown down a big chute. I don't know, man. Like some of that, I don't know.
Luke escaped that.
He
fell down a big chute and he survived.
That's the big finish right there. I wasn't a gorilla press slam. I don't know.
He got rock bottom down to the bottom of the chute. Is it possible that he might have survived?
Why do they keep in the Star Wars universe? They always have those big ass tubes that go nowhere. People getting thrown down. They're everywhere.
The layout of some of these bases is beyond comprehension. It's not even relatable.
Bases, worlds. You remember Darth Maul fell down a big.
And then on that planet, were they on Tatooine?
Which one?
When Jabba got taken out, because that's a big pit.
Yeah.
A monster.
The joint. What was it? Was that actually Was the monster under the hole, or was the hole actually the monster?
Oh no, it was a big earthworm.
Yeah.
It was nasty.
Bubba Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of.
Yeah.
But the whole, like I say, the Force took on a new characteristic, and another thing I'm thinking in terms of Luke himself, was he a Jedi? Impression.
That's the impression that you're supposed to get. That essentially he felt like. He essentially says, "I am a Jedi."
He said that.
He else's it, and Yoda's like, "Whoa, wait a minute! Oh, you're doing too much there." Baby steps. Yeah. So he, I guess in theory, He was a Jedi.
Luke defense. Luke said that if I'm the only one running the race, I'm the only one winning.
Yeah.
So,
Which is the truth. Which is because I'm trying to remember his exact words. Did Yoda say that he laughed and then he said, did he say first you must defeat Vader or confront him?
Oh, that's a good
I can't
question.
remember.
I don't think it was
If you say confront, then you could just say that's a trial, and maybe if you get past that trial, then you're a knight.
yeah, because Jedi don't really.
That's the impression I was getting.
Yeah. Okay, so he
absolute, so seeming to say defeat him would put a certain sense of absolutism to it.
Yeah.
Jedi's don't really do, so I think it was confront.
That makes sense. And plus, I'm still not sure he should have been able to defeat Vader at that point. I don't think he had enough. Because he finished up some of his training or whatever it is that he went back with. Yoda basically told him there's nothing else that I can teach you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if lightning again should have came up in that conversation. But if he's just saying that I'm about to die and this is as far as I can go, you're on your own, if that's what it is, by process of elimination, yeah, he was a Jedi. I mean, who's going to argue the point, you know? But I still would put him at, he'd be above a Padawan, and if you was going like the Old Republic, he'd be definitely above a Padawan, but Knight, maybe.
I mean, he'd have to be a knight at this point.
At that point, yeah.
I mean,
I think by the time, I think it's a situation like you said, though, it's if you look at it as his confrontation with Vader is essentially him going through the trials.
mm-hmm.
And you pass the trials, you become a knight. I mean, he's a Jedi by the time this whole ordeal is over.
You know, let me give him a little bit more credit. He could credibly use a mind trick easily. He could dominate the minds of Bammers pretty easily. He could fight good enough, although he still probably haven't had much fencing experience in straight combat. But he could defeat a lot of people.
Yeah.
Deflect fire, blast of fire. I'd say, yeah, I give the man more credit. He's a knight. He was a knight. He wasn't nowhere near a master, but he was a knight.
No, he wasn't a master.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was definitely a knight. I mean, I think, he had the tools necessary. I mean, I think at some point it becomes a situation where, I can't teach you, but you got to work on stuff.
Right.
But it's not, so that's where it was. You're not my level, but
So basically, he was where Luffy was when Rayleigh cut him loose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's you're not a Yonko, but
from this point you could progress to that level.
Yeah, you okay? Yeah, I mean that's the impression I got.
Okay.
That's always been the impression I had. I never thought he was a.
Okay, so now at this point we graded all of the now in terms of the saga. Everybody cool with the saga to this point? The overall, all 1, 2, and 3. This not the saga, the arc.
Yes.
So everybody cool with the arc. So
I'm cool with the arc at this point.
I give the arc a B, maybe a B plus at this point.
I give the arc a B.
I give the arc a C.
Okay. All right. So this is the high water mark of the of the Star Wars of the Skywalker Saga. Next time we convene, we're gonna get into the prequels, which, as we will see, is not as bad as you think. In comparison.
Well, I'm gonna tear into the prequels. I'm gonna tell you that the break. I'm gonna tear into it because I actually think the prequel has. Well, I'm not gonna get into it. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
By comparison,
I would eliminate one of the movies, and one of them I'd split down. It is what it is.
It's gonna be. It ain't gonna be cute. It ain't gonna be cute because some of this stuff is interesting. He made some interesting choices. Now we gotta say this is all Lucas at this point. Nobody helped him. No, wait a minute. Did he get he wrote what did he go? 3, right? All by himself?
Yeah, it's all Lucas.
Okay, so it's all Lucas.
He's credited as writer and director on all 3 of the movies.
Okay. All right, so that concludes our first arc of the Skywalker Saga, and we'll get into the next one when we next convene. Give your impressions with the, give your impressions on our review, our thoughts, or give your own in the comments below. And until next time, y'all stay loose. May the force be with you.